Chioma sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the pile of unpaid bills stacked on her table like silent judges. Her boutique business, once her pride, had crashed after months of bad sales and endless debts. She had fought hard to keep it alive, but customers had dwindled, suppliers had withdrawn, and finally, her landlord had threatened eviction. The walls of her two-bedroom flat, which once felt like a fortress of independence, were now suffocating her with the weight of failure. She needed a solution. After several sleepless nights, the idea came reluctantly. Get a flatmate. If someone could share the rent, she might at least stay afloat until she found her feet again. She posted an advert, interviewed a few people, and eventually settled for Ada. Ada was everything Chioma wasn't. Loud, flashy, arrogant, and obsessed with appearances. She wore bright wigs that screamed for attention, carried handbags more expensive than her monthly rent, and spoke with a kind of careless confidence that made people roll their eyes. But she paid her share of the rent up front, and that was all Chioma cared about. At first, the arrangement seemed bearable. Ada spent most of her evenings outside with friends, returning home late and loud. She rarely cleaned, barely cooked, and often left the fridge door open. But Chioma, raised with patience and discipline, bit her tongue and focused on survival. She reminded herself that Ada's money kept a roof over her head. Yet deep down, a storm was already brewing. Ada's arrogance clashed with Chioma's quiet strength, and though the house was still standing, the foundation of their friendship was already cracking. Saturday mornings were usually Chioma's time for restocking. With her business struggling, she had become extra cautious with every naira she spent. That morning, she carried her market list carefully, hunting for deals at a nearby grocery store. Ada, on the other hand, strutted beside her in 6-inch heels, sunglasses perched on her face even though they were indoors. She pushed the trolley lazily, chewing gum and humming loudly to a song only she could hear. As they turned into the cereal aisle, a man was already standing there, comparing prices of milk. He wore a plain t-shirt, faded jeans, and slippers that had seen better days. His hair wasn't freshly cut, and there was nothing about him that screamed wealth. Ada wrinkled her nose immediately. "Excuse me, Oga," she snapped, clicking her tongue. "Can you shift? You're blocking the way." The man turned slowly, his eyes calm, unfazed by her sharp tone. "I'm sorry," he said simply, sliding his basket aside. But Ada wasn't done. She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Now wow. You people that can't even afford proper clothes are the ones wasting time here. A beg, shift well." Chioma's jaw dropped. "Ada!" she exclaimed, mortified. She turned to the man quickly. "I'm so sorry. Please don't mind her, she didn't mean it." The man's lips curved into the faintest smile, but his eyes lingered on Chioma, curious. "It's all right," he said softly. Chioma shook her head and lowered her voice, turning back to Ada. "You can't speak to people like that. That's rude. Didn't your parents teach you better?" Ada scoffed, tossing a pack of cornflakes into the trolley. "Please, I beg. Look at him. He looks like he came here to price things he can't buy." Chioma ignored her. Instead, she gave the stranger a small, apologetic smile. "I'm really sorry about my flatmate. Some of us were raised differently." The man chuckled lightly, a sound that was warm despite the awkwardness. "It's fine. My name is Femi." "Chioma," she replied, smiling for the first time that morning. And as she walked away, she didn't miss the way Femi's eyes followed her, not with irritation but with intrigue. Ada scoffed again, tugging her arm. "Chioma, I don't know why you're wasting your good manners on broke men. Trust me, that one has nothing to offer." Chioma only smiled faintly, but something inside her told her Ada was wrong. Chioma hadn't expected to see Femi again after the grocery store incident, but he found a way. It started with a polite wave when they bumped into each other at the bakery, then a short chat about the rising price of bread, and soon they were exchanging numbers. What began as small talk quickly evolved into something deeper. Femi was easy to talk to. He listened intently, laughed at her jokes, and asked questions that made her feel seen. On nights when the flat grew too noisy with Ada's phone calls and blasting music, Chioma would retreat to her room, phone pressed against her ear, whispering into the dark as Femi's voice kept her company. They talked about everything: childhood memories, dreams that had been delayed, and the quiet fears they both carried. Ada noticed, of course. She always did. One evening, Chioma sat at the dining table giggling softly into her phone, her plate of food untouched. Ada rolled her eyes dramatically. "So it's that broke guy again?" she asked, arms folded. Chioma lowered her phone, frowning. "His name is Femi. And he's not broke." Ada scoffed. "Please. You don't need to waste your time with men who can't even afford decent shoes. A woman like you deserves better." But Chioma ignored her. Femi didn't need designer clothes or flashy cars to prove his worth. He had kindness, humility, and a sense of humor that lifted her weary heart. That was enough, or so she thought. One Saturday afternoon, after weeks of late-night calls and growing closeness, Femi invited her over. Chioma hesitated, but curiosity won. She expected a modest apartment, maybe one like hers. What she found left her stunned. A tall gate, security guards saluting, a sweeping driveway lined with cars, and a house that gleamed with wealth. The marble floors reflected her shocked face as she stepped inside. You live here," she whispered. Femi smiled, a little smug. "I told you, Chioma, I like keeping things simple. Let people think what they want. I don't need to explain myself to anyone." Her chest tightened. So he wasn't broke. He had only hidden his wealth, waiting for her to see it with her own eyes. It was pride, yes, but it didn't matter. Because somewhere along the way, she had already started to like him. That evening, when she returned to the flat and told Ada the truth, Ada's laughter was forced, her smile too sharp. She congratulated Chioma, but her eyes burned with something else. Envy. The flat no longer felt the same. What used to be just a roof over two women had become a battlefield of unspoken emotions. Chioma's closeness with Femi grew with each passing day, and Ada's jealousy simmered just beneath the surface. At night, the walls betrayed secrets. Femi would sometimes stay over, and the sounds of their passion seeped into Ada's room. Chioma's soft moans, the creak of the mattress, the whispered endearments that pierced through Ada's ears like needles. She buried her head in her pillow, but the torment only grew sharper. Chioma, in her innocence, didn't help matters. The next morning, over breakfast, she would tease lightly, her eyes glowing with newfound love. "Femi is so gentle, Ada. Yet so strong. The way he touches me, I didn't know a man could know a woman's body like that." She giggled, sipping her tea. "Sometimes I think he was made just for me." Ada clenched her fork so tightly it nearly bent. Inside, her body ached with desire for the man she had once dismissed as broke. Now, every detail Chioma shared fed her fantasies. She imagined his hands, his lips, his body pressed against hers. By the time she locked her bedroom door at night, she was already undone, her mind betraying her with images of what she couldn't have. One evening, when Chioma stepped out quickly to pick something from the corner shop, Ada found herself alone with Femi in the sitting room. The silence stretched thick. He leaned casually on the arm of the chair, scrolling through his phone. Ada licked her lips, her voice dropping. You don't have to pretend," she whispered, moving closer. "I can give you more than she ever could. You just have to let me show you." Femi's eyes lifted slowly, amusement flickering. He didn't reply. Instead, he stood, closed the space between them, and pinned her lightly against the wall. His hand brushed against her lips, his gaze dark and unreadable. Ada's breath caught. For a moment, she thought he would kiss her, claim her. Her body trembled with anticipation. But then, without a word, he pulled back and walked away. From that day, a dangerous game began. Whenever they were alone, Femi teased her mercilessly. A brush of fingers, a heated stare, standing too close, whispering without finishing. He left her wet with want, but always denied her. At night, Ada lay in her bed, consumed by lust, while Chioma's moans echoed once more through the walls. The torment was unbearable, and slowly Ada's desire turned into obsession. Ada's obsession had reached its peak. Femi's teasing had driven her mad. Every brush of his fingers, every half-kiss left her burning through sleepless nights. She couldn't take it anymore. She needed him no matter the cost. One humid afternoon, she dressed in a tight red gown and went straight to his office, uninvited. The secretary tried to stop her, but Ada's charm and boldness pushed her through the door. Femi looked up from his desk, surprised, then amused. "Ada," he drawled, leaning back in his chair. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked over slowly, hips swaying, eyes locked on his. Before he could react, she grabbed his face and kissed him hard. For a moment he resisted, then his pride gave way, and he kissed her back, pulling her onto his lap. Her fingers fumbled with his shirt buttons, her breath hot against his skin. It was reckless, intoxicating, and for a brief moment she felt victorious. But fate was cruel. Just as they straightened their clothes, the door opened. "Femi!" Chioma's cheerful voice rang out as she stepped inside, holding a food flask. She froze, her smile fading. Her eyes flicked from Ada to Femi. The air thickened with guilt. Femi reacted quickly. "Chioma," he said smoothly, standing. "Ada came to discuss a business proposal. Isn't that right?" Ada's lips parted, but Femi's sharp glance silenced her. Chioma forced a smile, though her chest felt tight. "Oh, business." She placed the food flask on his desk and left quietly, her footsteps too calm for the storm rising in her heart. That evening, back at the flat, Chioma entered unexpectedly and caught them again, Ada sneaking out of Femi's arms in the hallway. Shock consumed her. "You?" Chioma's voice cracked. Her eyes filled with betrayal as she stumbled backward. "No, Chioma, wait." Ada rushed after her, panic flaring. She reached for Chioma's arm, trying to explain. But in the struggle, Ada pushed too hard. Chioma's scream echoed as her body tumbled down the staircase. The world went silent. Ada's hand shook violently as she stared down at her flatmate's crumpled figure at the bottom of the stairs. Femi appeared, his face pale, as neighbors rushed out at the sound. Within minutes, Chioma was carried into an ambulance. Ada collapsed against the wall, trembling. She hadn't meant it. Or maybe deep down she had. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The sharp scent of disinfectant stung Chioma's nostrils as her eyes fluttered open. The ceiling above her was white, the light blinding. Slowly, sounds returned. The hum of machines, the shuffle of footsteps, and then voices. "She's awake," Ada gasped, rushing to her bedside, her face pale and streaked with dried tears. Femi hovered behind her, his expression a mask of forced concern. Chioma's lips parted. Her voice came out hoarse, fragile. Who are you?" The room froze. Ada blinked rapidly. "Chioma, it's me, Ada. Your flatmate. Don't you remember?" Chioma shook her head slowly, feigning confusion. Her eyes drifted to Femi, who stepped closer. A slow, prideful smile tugged at his lips. This was his chance. "I'm your flatmate's boyfriend," he said smoothly, gesturing toward Ada. "You're safe now." Ada's mouth fell open. "Femi," she began, but his sharp glare silenced her. Before Chioma could respond, Femi turned slightly, pointing at the man who had been standing quietly in the corner. Chaik, the compound security guard. His uniform looked stiff, his hands clasped nervously. "And him?" Femi continued with mocking calm. "He's your boyfriend. He's the one who cared for you while you were here." Chaik's eyes widened. "Sir." He tried to protest, but swallowed the words quickly. Chioma's gaze shifted to him, her expression soft, innocent. You took care of me." Chaik hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, madam." "Thank you," she whispered, her lips curling into a faint smile. Ada looked utterly lost, confusion and unease battling on her face. "Femi, what kind of lie is this?" She's not." But Chioma only leaned back into her pillow, letting her eyelids droop as though exhausted. Inside, her heart pounded with rage and clarity. So this is how he wants to play it. To can play a game. She forced a weak smile, her voice barely above a whisper. If you say so. Femi's pride glowed like a crown as he stepped away, convinced he had control. Ada wrung her hands nervously, and Chaik stood silent, guilt gnawing at him. But in Chioma's mind, the truth was sharp and alive. She had not forgotten a thing. Every betrayal, every lie, every whisper of lust between Femi and Ada. She remembered it all. And now, with this mask of amnesia, she would watch them destroy themselves. Life in the flat after Chioma's return was tense, layered with secrets and unspoken games. Femi strutted about, arrogant as ever, convinced his lie had chained Chioma to his will. Ada grew restless, torn between jealousy and guilt. But Chaik, the reluctant pawn in Femi's twisted story, became Chioma's quiet refuge. He never said much, but his actions spoke louder than words. When Femi forgot to bring her medication, Chaik appeared at her door, holding the pills and a glass of water. When Ada scoffed about her being slow after the fall, Chaik silently bent to tie her sandals before she stepped out. When the flat grew heavy with whispers and laughter that weren't hers, it was Chaik who knocked softly and asked, "Do you need anything, madam?" Chioma would watch him in those moments, her heart softening. There was no pride in his gestures, no arrogance, just genuine care. One evening, while Ada and Femi laughed too loudly in the sitting room, Chioma slipped out to the veranda. The moonlight painted the compound silver. Chaik stood near the gate, polishing his torchlight. "You're always so quiet," she said softly. He startled, then gave her a shy smile. "I don't talk much. I prefer to observe." She tilted her head, studying him. "But you see everything, don't you?" He hesitated. "Maybe more than I should." Their eyes held, and for a heartbeat the world stilled. Chioma's chest fluttered, warmth spreading inside her. Femi could tease, Ada could envy, but only Chaik made her feel safe. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Thank you for everything. You're the only one who truly sees me." Chaik's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, his gaze dropping to her lips before quickly pulling away. "It's nothing, madam. Just my duty." But as she turned back inside, a faint smile curved her lips. For the first time since the fall, Chioma felt hope blooming again. Not from Femi's touch, not from revenge, but from something real. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant hum of Lagos traffic. Chioma sat on the veranda, her legs tucked under her, staring at the stars. Femi had left in a huff after an argument with Ada, and the flat was unusually still. Chaik stood by the gate, but his eyes kept drifting toward her. For weeks, he had watched her smile bravely, hide her pain, and pretend she had no memory. But tonight, something in her gaze pulled him closer. He walked over slowly, his heart pounding. "Chioma," he said quietly. She turned, her eyes soft, expectant. "Yes, Chaik." He clenched his fists, gathering courage. "I can't keep pretending. I'm not poor. I'm not just a gateman. I chose this job because I was tired. Tired of women chasing my father's wealth, tired of being seen as nothing but money. I wanted someone to love me for me. That's why I stayed here. That's why I let Femi's lies stand. I just wanted to know if love could be real." Chioma's breath caught. Her eyes widened as the truth sank in. He wasn't who she thought, but he was more. Not just a security guard, but a man with the courage to strip himself of pride in search of something genuine. Slowly, she rose to her feet, her chest trembling with emotion. "Chaik!" She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Then I must confess too. I never lost my memory." His eyes widened in shock. "I remembered everything," she whispered fiercely. "Femi's betrayal. It is jealousy. The whispers at night, the games, the lies. From the moment I woke in that hospital, I knew who you all were. I played along because I wanted the truth to reveal itself. And it did. But the only real thing I felt through it all was you. For a moment, the air thickened with unspoken words. Then Chaik's hand closed gently over hers. So all this time you knew? She nodded, tears brimming. Yes. And while they were destroying themselves with lust and pride, you were the one who healed me with kindness. His eyes softened, his voice dropping to a whisper. Chioma, let's stop hiding. Their lips met under the moonlight, slow and tender, sealing a bond born not of lies or wealth, but of truth. For the first time in weeks, Chioma felt free. But across the courtyard, hidden in the shadows, Ada watched. Her eyes blazed with fury. And the storm she was about to unleash would make everything else look like a child's game.